Annette Morgan took a shortcut across university grounds to meet up with a friend. Along the way, she would meet her killer. Her murder would spark student protests. It would expose a culture of degradation and misogyny and the darker side of university life. It's been over 40 years and Annette's case remains unsolved. Hi, I'm Lee and this is Coffee Break Crime. I post solved and unsolved cases each week from around the world. If this is something you want to learn about, please consider subscribing and click the bell to be notified of new uploads. Let's get started. During the 1970s, when this case takes place, Sydney was undergoing social change, as was the rest of Australia. Multiculturalism became part of the vocabulary, and the city benefited from the variety of new cuisines and diverse population. Gay and lesbians were recognised with the first gay and lesbian Mardi Gras that continues to this day, and Aboriginals fought for their rights, environmental groups emerged, and women became active in protesting about inequality. There were a lot of protests during this era, and a couple that were held were in response to today's case. Today's case takes place on the grounds of Sydney University. It's the oldest university in Sydney, founded in 1850. The main campus is located on the fringe of the Sydney CBD, spanning the suburbs of Broadway, Camperdown and Darlington. Throughout the grounds and surrounding the campus, there are a number of residential colleges for students who wish to board on campus. It's a university that I attended, and it was here that I first heard about Annette's case. Annette Louise Morgan was just 18 in 1977. She was a regular churchgoer with a caring nature who was well liked and popular with others. She had moved from the small lakeside town of Warners Bay on the Central Coast, about an hour and a half from Sydney, and enrolled at Sydney University at the beginning of the year. She was undertaking a science-based course, possibly nursing. University is not for everyone, and sometimes the time is just not right, and for whatever reason, Annette decided that this was not the path she wanted to take. She took a few weeks off from university in early October and returned to the family home. Maybe she was eager to get into the real world, maybe she wanted to be closer to her family, and maybe she just wanted to join the workforce. While she was at Warners Bay, she was offered a position at Royal Newcastle Hospital as a trainee radiologist, and she could work and study to be a radiologist. And this seems to be what Annette wanted. She accepted the job. A job in the medical field and closer to her family and friends that she had grown up with, and she made the decision that she would leave university and pursue this opportunity. Before she started work and her new radiology course, she decided to spend the weekend back in Sydney, visit friends from university, and probably let them know that she would not be returning and her new job opportunity. She took the afternoon train from the Central Coast to Sydney on Friday the 28th of October 1977 and met her female friend in Glebe. Glebe is walking distance to the main campus of Sydney University, and it's an ideal location for visits to the university and the residential colleges on campus. Annette stayed the night with her friend, catching up and enjoying their time together. She planned to spend Saturday visiting her friends from university. Before she went to bed on the Friday night, she telephoned a long-term male friend that boarded at St Paul's College at the university. She wanted to finalise their plans to meet up the next morning. A message was taken by a fellow resident. Annette was up early the next day, keen to meet up with her friend. She hadn't heard back from him, but decided to set off anyway and meet him at the college. St Paul's College, where her friend was boarding, is an all-male college, but women were allowed as guests at meal times, including breakfast. She put on a blue dress and blue platform shoes, adding a bone-coloured loose top and accessorising with a wristwatch, gold bangle and a blue handbag. Annette left her friend's home at 7:15 a.m. for the day out. She walked down Wigram Road, Glebe, passing the Victorian terrace houses and workers' cottages that still stand today, making her way to Sydney University and St Paul's College. The walk could take between 20 minutes and 40 minutes, maybe longer if it was a casual stroll. Once she crossed busy Parramatta Road, she was at the university grounds, and it's believed that she went through a small gate in the fence there. She could use this as a shortcut to pass through St Paul's College Oval and into the college. This would be quicker than sticking to the roads and paths on the university grounds. It was a lovely sunny day, and Annette probably wanted to take the shortest route, bearing in mind she was wearing platform shoes. The shoes were popular in the 70s, but they weren't designed for long walks. Overlooking the Oval, Sub-Warden Angus Gidley Baird had been working at his desk in this room since 6:30 a.m. He didn't notice anything amiss that day. Unfortunately, the view from his window looked out on the Oval nearby, but it didn't show the ditch of the embankment nearby to it. And it wasn't until after 8 a.m. that Saturday morning that the message Annette had left at St Paul's College for her friend was posted on his dormitory door. That day, a cricket match was scheduled to be played at 10 a.m. on the well-kept oval outside St Paul's that Annette would cross. People would be near to this area to set up and practice for the match. Although the oval was well kept and maintained to ensure that sporting activities could take place, the surrounding area had long grass and it was really in need of maintenance and a cut. But just like any other day of the week, people were out and about, enjoying the spring sunshine and using the grounds as a shortcut to other surrounding suburbs. Annette would never make the short distance between the Oval and meeting her friend at St Paul's College. Her body would be found partially naked on a pile of rubble at the foot of a 12-foot embankment near the Oval. There are conflicting sources about when the discovery of Annette's body was made. One source claimed it was discovered between 8 and 9 a.m. by a man on his way to the Victoria Park pool on the far side of the St Paul's College Oval. He noticed something and went to investigate. Other sources claim that Annette's body was discovered by a jogger at 10:30 a.m. Regardless of which time is correct, in reality, Annette's body had gone unnoticed for at least an hour, possibly more. There were people about using the oval and others waiting to start their cricket game. Her body was found close to City Road, which is extremely busy with both foot and vehicle traffic. The police were called and detectives could immediately see that Annette had been very badly beaten and strangled. They quickly mobilised and a group of 12 detectives spent 2 days interviewing residents at the nearby St Paul's College and other colleges on the campus, hoping that someone had seen or heard something. St Paul's College was Annette's destination that day, and her body was discovered at the St Paul's Oval opposite. At the time, there were about 180 male residents in the college, but none of them saw or heard anything, according to the detectives who interviewed them. Dozens of students were interviewed in the days following, including the son of the then Prime Minister, Malcolm Fraser. The cricket match due to take place on the Oval was postponed, and the Oval and surrounding area was searched by detectives. They hoped to find evidence, but this search proved fruitless, and the cricket match went ahead that afternoon. An autopsy of Annette's body revealed that she had been brutally raped, beaten with hands and fists, so much so it had fractured her skull, and she was then strangled. In order to strangle someone so they lose consciousness, it takes minutes. You have to be up close and personal to the victim. To strangle someone to death can take up to 5 minutes, which is a long time while you're watching the life drain out of someone's body. Time that the killer was not interrupted for, and that Annette wouldn't be able to scream and attract attention. The police believe that Annette was manually strangled with someone's bare hands without the use of a ligature. News of the murder quickly spread on campus, and students were shocked. They couldn't believe what had happened on their campus. It's meant to be a home away from home, a place where you're meant to feel safe. It also seemed incredible that this crime could be committed in broad daylight, next to a sporting oval, overlooked by other colleges, near a busy road, and there were no witnesses. No one reported anything unusual taking place at the time. No screams, no sounds of an attack, nothing. While police were not able to get any useful leads from those on campus, they did obtain some information from members of the public. 2 days after the murder, on the 31st of October, an elderly man informed police that he had seen a man walking across the City Road pedestrian bridge on the day of the murder. The pedestrian bridge is an overpass over City Road, so pedestrians can avoid crossing the extremely busy road that borders the university. He remembered the man as he had what looked like blood on his trousers. The man noticed grease marks on his right knee. He was described as between 35 and 40, 173 centimetres tall or 5 foot 7 inches, with a solid build and a suntanned complexion. His sandy hair was brushed forward on his forehead and he had a bent or broken nose. He was wearing a navy blue coat and bone-coloured long trousers. An identikit picture was released to the public, and although the public response was good, there were no leads. On the 1st of November, police then widened their search and they made house-to-house canvasses around the area near the university grounds, but it too came to nothing. Hoping to get more leads, the police released further information to the media. Although Annette's blue handbag was found with her body, her Buxton brand wallet was missing. The wallet was described as mid-green in colour and approximately 11.4 centimetres by 8.9 centimetres. She was carrying about $60 in cash at the time in her wallet, about $350 nowadays. And as well as the money, the wallet also contained her university-issued identification card. To this day, though, the wallet and ID card have not been recovered. On the 2nd of November, Annette's family had to do the unthinkable and bury their daughter and sister. A service was held for Annette at St Mary's Catholic Church in Warners Bay before she was buried at Newcastle. There were about 500 mourners, including detectives working the case from Sydney, in attendance. Then another witness came forward who described a man he had seen on the grounds of the university the morning of Annette's murder. An identikit picture was released of the man. He was described as being aged 20 to 25, clean-shaven, with a slender build and dark complexion, with shoulder-length brown hair. The man was described as being well-spoken, and it seems that the second man must have spoken to someone at the university to be described that way, but I couldn't find any detail of that conversation. Obviously, these men may have nothing to do with what happened to Annette, but maybe they seen something that could move the investigation forward, or at least be eliminated. Unfortunately, they have not been identified. The police believe that the men were not residents, staff, or students at the university, but an outsider. When it became known that Annette had been raped, the Women's Collective of the Student Representative Council of the University gathered on the 3rd of November. They held a forum with about 100 women in attendance. During this forum, the women alleged that there had been a number of incidents of rape on campus, but the victims had been intimidated not to report the matter. The intimidation came in many forms, from the perpetrator, their friends, and even from other women. This forum ultimately led to a wider and ongoing discussion on university culture that continues to this day. The women also alleged that male students at the nearby St Paul's College regarded rape as all part of the fun of university life. This was vehemently denied by not only the head of St Paul's College, but also representatives from other surrounding colleges, St Andrews and St John's, as well as the continuing discussion on rape on campus. Students were increasingly fearful about their safety. In response, the university increased campus security. Between 1974 and 1977, the security guards on campus had only increased by 10 from 20 and then to 30. And at that time, the university had more than 21,000 students and staff. It had expanded so much it was bounded by 3 suburbs. University officials in the years prior to Annette's murder wanted to increase security to ensure more of the campus grounds, buildings and rooms were patrolled. But due to economic measures, they couldn't do so. After Annette's murder, A free minibus service was introduced which ran at 20-minute intervals during the evening around the campus. 2 more bus stops were incorporated as well, and additional parking places on campus. They also installed more lights and increased security patrols. These measures did not reduce the fear that students had, though. There were more submissions to tighten security in April of 1978. Some of these requests included escorting women to their cars by police if they notify campus security that they will be there late at night, employing gatekeepers rather than having the police man them, providing phones around the campus, and increasing lighting in dim-lit areas. These measures may have served as a deterrent and reassured students walking the grounds at night, particularly for the hundreds of female students living close to the crime scene, but it did nothing to address the issue that Annette was murdered in a public place near a busy road in broad daylight. And while these new security measures were implemented, police continued to work the case. But leads were slow and really non-existent. On the 12th of February 1978, Annette's case was featured as a segment on Channel 10 News. Television publicity like this usually helps to generate some leads into a case. There were a number of callers, more than 40 in fact, many from women claiming to have been attacked. It doesn't appear though that any of those attacks were by the same person that murdered Annette. Unfortunately, none of these leads led to solving Annette's case, but they did draw more attention to unreported sexual assaults on campus. Months later, on the 27th of May, the police thought they'd caught a break. They had a man in custody on an unrelated matter, and their interview raised a connection with Annette's death. But this lead too went nowhere. The contents of that interview have not been made public, but it seems there wasn't enough evidence to charge him, or he wasn't connected to Annette's murder after all, because nothing further happened. In fact, nothing happened at all. Over 40 years have gone by and Annette's case is still unsolved. Generally, it's a footnote in cold cases and cases about murders at university. The police have only ever publicly disclosed one theory for Annette's attack, believing that she was followed through the grounds of the university that morning, and it was possibly a random attack or a crime of opportunity. In my research, I couldn't find any witness statements that have been made public that would corroborate that theory. My understanding, though, is even now, 40 years later, that the police have not wavered in their belief that an outsider committed these crimes, not someone connected or associated with the university in any way, and that it was purely a random attack. Although the vast majority of rapes are committed by someone the victim knows, this appears to be a case of a random stranger. And it may be that the police have tunnel vision on this theory, or maybe they have grounds for this belief that haven't been made publicly known. Although Annette's murder has never been solved, the rape and the sexual assault have caused ongoing discussion in all levels of universities in Australia. The amount of sexual assaults, unreported rapes, and the treatment of women on campus instantly became a focal point after Annette's death. This still continues to this day. You will always see Annette's case referenced in any of these reports. A doctor came forward that was previously employed by the university from 1966 to 1974. Claiming that many of his female patients had told him they'd been forced to have sex during their time at university. Their counselling service claimed that the real sexual assault statistics on campus are far higher due to the amount of unreported sexual assaults. There were a number of protest forums and discussions on sexual assault on campus after Annette's death, and these groups ultimately led to the formation of interest groups that have had an impressive record at generating conversation and advocating for victims. Journalist Nina Funnell is one of those at the forefront in this area. She is also a former staff member at University of Sydney, and she's the ambassador for End Rape on Campus Australia. One of the reports that she was lead author for is the Red Zone Report, which is a study of sexual assaults at Australian universities. And I have read the Red Zone Report. It is a frightening read of university culture. In the report, it's estimated that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 25 men will experience sexual assault. These figures seem to align with other overseas statistics on sexual assault at campus as well. The common age for the sexual assaults being between 15 and 19, really the first and second year of university for many students. As well as shining a light on sexual assault at university, Annette's murder also drew attention to St Paul's College. Annette was on her way to St Paul's College that day. Her body was found in close proximity to St Paul's Oval, and it drew a lot of public attention to that college. Much of that attention was not favourable. St Paul's College is the oldest university college in Australia, founded in 1856 and steeped in tradition. The all-male college focuses on education, sports, while trying to instil in the residents gentlemanly behaviour. St Paul's College has been home to men who have gone on to celebrated careers in law, medicine, engineering, politics, including former prime ministers. In the 1970s, many at St Paul's wanted to incorporate a more co-ed approach to the college to ensure that both sexes mix well, as many of the residents may have grown up without female figures in their family, but this was opposed by 90% of the men. The college relaxed the restrictions, though, to allow female guests for meals. Visiting St Paul's in the 1970s was like stepping into a different era of formality or an old black and white movie. An academic gown was required to be worn over a coat, and tie always to formal dinners each night. There were after-dinner speeches, fine wines and great food. Although St Paul's may try to produce gentlemen, it hasn't always lived up to these ambitions. In fact, the college has had a number of scandals over the years, including around the time of Annette's death and more recently. On the Saturday after Annette's body had been found, there was an annual dinner to farewell students leaving the college. After dinner, and when the wardens had retired for the night, the awards night started. These awards are created by the residents of the college, and about 40 students were in attendance. One trophy given out was the Animal Act of the Year trophy. According to sources, this cup was inscribed in Latin, and the translation for it, "If she won't fornicate, beat her." The cup has been used since 1963, and it was usually awarded for something embarrassing. On this occasion, it was given jointly by 2 students to a 3rd student, all of whom had been accused of gang raping a student at the Women's College. The woman who had made the accusation was publicly named. Some students were shocked and walked out of the awards dinner. They then reported the matter to the warden. In response to this award, 20 women from Women's Liberation House demonstrated outside the college and called on the men to be expelled and for the end of the Animal Act of the Year award. The 3 students were expelled the following Tuesday, and a 4th was suspended. They were expelled after a report into the incident by the college, not for the sexual assault, but for their behaviour naming the woman and the Animal Act of the Year award. However, 2 of the expelled students were just about to graduate, so they weren't affected by being expelled. And the 3rd was allowed to re-enroll at the university the following year and reapply to reside at the college. The woman who made the accusations ultimately elected not to pursue the matter. This was not a one-off incident regarding the degradation of women at the college, and throughout the years and during this time, St Paul's College has faced numerous scandals, sexual assault claims, hazing, ritual humiliation, and other accusations of intimidation and inappropriate behaviour. This led to a review of the college by former Sex Discrimination Commissioner Elizabeth Broderick in 2018. The Broderick Report identified these issues with the college, and they responded by expanding the requirements for entry to the college to include a greater range of educational diversification. From 2023, St Paul's will allow female residents, as well as criticism of St Paul's College and their behaviour generally. The police have also been subject to criticism for their handling of Annette's case. Initially, it seemed they were doing a thorough job mobilising detectives, interviewing people, and getting identikits out to the public. And in the 1970s, this was feet on the ground work, which requires a lot of canvassing, interviewing people, using informants, and collecting evidence without the benefit of technology that we now have. But some people have suggested that Annette's investigation may be tainted by the involvement of one of the many detectives working the case. At the time of Annette's murder, the detective in question was well respected, but he eventually left the police force due to drug-related crimes, and he was convicted of those well after Annette's investigation, though. Another criticism of the police was the amount of time it took for New South Wales Police to offer a reward. It wasn't until 19th of June 1987, nearly 10 years after Annette's death, that a reward was offered. It's unclear why it took so long and why then. It may have been as a result of the persistence of Mrs. Swartz, who is Annette's cousin. She'd been campaigning for a reward to be offered for years, and she was understandably confused as to why some cases attract a reward and others do not. The timing of the reward also seems significant. It was announced just 3 days after the sentencing of the murderers of Anita Cobby. The gang rape and murder of Anita Cobby is well known in Australian criminal history due to the brutality and depravity of the crime. And on the 16th of June, just 3 days prior to Annette's reward being offered, the murderers of Anita Cobby were sentenced to life in prison, with files marked never to be released. The reward is for $50,000, leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murder of Annette. A free pardon has also been offered to any accomplice, not being the person who actually committed the crime, who first gives such information. But as at the date of this recording, no one has claimed the reward. A few years ago, Police Minister John Watkins announced that detectives will be carrying out a comprehensive review of cases dating back to 1970. These cases will have the benefit of fresh eyes, new detectives, and of course advancements in policing and forensic technology. They will be going through each case, deciding if they can be solved or not. And of the 400 unsolved murders on the books from this era, 47 of those cases will be reinvestigated. While this sounds promising, there's been no indication that Annette's case will be reinvestigated. And disappointingly, the police have also advised that not all cases will be completely reviewed, but they will be allocated a scale of whether they're solvable or not. Annette's killer could now be in his 70s, and time is running out to bring him to justice, if it hasn't already. Since the 1970s, technology has come a long way, and the first thing that you would anticipate detectives would do would be DNA analysis in the event that Annette's case will be reviewed. It's assumed that the killer must have left DNA on Annette's clothing and body, or her handbag in removing that wallet. Obviously, there may not have been a large enough sample. It may not have been collected or stored correctly, or it may have deteriorated. But there's a bigger problem. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, some, if not all, of the forensic evidence has been lost. Hopefully, there is enough evidence left that can be tested. Former Detective Bill Duff was asked about Annette's case a few years ago. He was one of the many homicide detectives that worked on the case. And although he was used to gangland murders and underworld crime, Annette's case struck with him, and he said, after 40-odd years, even to this day, I still have memories of it. The senselessness of the whole thing. That really sums Annette's case up. Her death was so senseless and such a waste, to take such a young woman's life for no reason. That really sums Annette's case up. Her death was so senseless and such a waste, to take such a young woman's life for no reason. He said, It still comes back to mind. I was on Glebe Point Road the other day and came past the end of Wigram Road, and it flashed back into my mind straight away. Duff said his colleague, Detective Sergeant Don Worsley, was tormented by Annette's unsolved murder until the day he died. It will never ever leave me, the thought of the whole thing. It was awful, Duff added. Annette's parents never spoke publicly about the death of their daughter, as it was just too painful for them. I would love to know your thoughts on this case, and of course, if you have any information, please contact Crime Stoppers at the number listed below. If you would like to hear more cases like this, then please show the like button some love. It really helps me out. And hit the bell to be notified when I upload new cases. Until next time, stay safe out there.